new travel ban executive order could be announced today. How will it be different than the first one? Joining us now to debate it, Dan Stein, president of the Federation for American Immigration Reform, or FAIR. He favors the president's actions on immigration. And Andre Segura, he is a staff attorney for the ACLU. He opposes the travel ban. Gentlemen, great to have you here. Dan, what do you understand about how the new revised version will look?
Well, clearly they've taken their time, and they're going to make sure that they hopefully can draft an order that won't be attacked judicially. They're going to probably exclude Iraq, maybe for political reasons, and that doesn't really strengthen their case if that's the rationale. And then they're going to have, as you point out, a phase-in period, and because they're going to exclude aliens who've had substantial contact with the U.S. already, like green card holders or F-1 visa, people who've been here for a while, and who are re-entering, it's likely that they're going to try to confine the population mostly to people who've had no prior contact with the U.S. and try to minimize any possibility for legal standing. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't be attacked. We know the ACLU doesn't want to have any immigration controls, so they'll probably bring 50 different lawsuits to try to get one judge, as they did in the Ninth Circuit, to try to enjoin it. And, of course, ultimately an injunction can put the whole thing on ice again for a while. But we hope that it will withstand scrutiny.
Andre, you don't want any immigration controls? You want open borders?
Look, it's important to just respond to what Dan said. This is likely going to be the same pig with just a different shade of lipstick. Honestly, he said something that was really important. He said they took their time, and that's important for everyone to think about. Why did they take their time? It's purely for publicity. There's no security rationale behind President Trump's motives. He wanted this to have its own moment. He wanted his address to have its own moment. If this were really about the security of the country, we would see them doing this and doing it fast.
Dan, isn't that the fly in the ointment here, that originally when they did it, it had to happen immediately? They caused chaos at the airports because it had to happen so quickly for national security. And now, weeks later, they've delayed it week after week, day after day. So what happened to that national security risk?
But Allison, this is the whole problem with having judicial interference in something that for the last 100 years has been committed to the president and powers delegated by Congress as his role as commander-in-chief. Historically, judges never want to get in a position of second-guessing national security judgments involving things happening overseas, whether it's immigration or refugee admissions or foreign policy, wars, the prosecution of foreign wars. These things have historically been outside the jurisdiction of judicial scrutiny. Think about it. If ISIS-related terrorist operatives came into the country between when the TRO was issued in Spokane and now when they issued the new executive order, who is politically accountable for that decision? If ISIS operatives commit terror attacks who came in during this period, the American people have no venue for political accountability now. The courts have basically taken control of something that has to be within the purview of the executive.
Go ahead, Andre.
I mean, you really have to listen to what Mr. Stein is saying. He's asking for no judicial review of the president's actions over people's lives. That's really an incredible position to be taking right now, and that is certainly not the case. Courts have been more willing over the past several decades to take presidents to task. There's no complete plenary power over immigration, as Mr. Stein would like. There needs to be a judicial tech. That's the country that we need. And this is just pure fear tactics. That's what Mr. Stein wants. He wants there just to be fear. And with fear, we see how easy it is to elect someone.
But Andre, let me stick with you for a second, because what we understand from our reporting that the legal permanent residents, meaning green card holders, will be exempt, visa holders exempt. They will avoid prioritizing any religious minorities, and there'll be a phase-in period so it doesn't all happen sort of immediately. Yes. Would that satisfy the ACLU?
No, I think we'll have to look at the details. But as Mr. Miller came out, one of President Trump's top aides, and said, this is going to have the same policy outcome. We're going to try to rewrite this, but at the end of the day, we're trying to achieve the same goals. And what were Mr. Trump's goals from the beginning? To call for a complete and total shutdown of Muslim immigration, and that's exactly what he's going to try to do. They can try to rewrite this 1,000 different ways. It looks like they're conceding that their first ban was a failure, and are moving on to another one, and are trying to twist themselves into circles to come up with something that passes muster, and this is just not going to fly.
But what would satisfy you, Andre? I mean, in terms of if the president wants to protect the country and doesn't think the vetting process goes far enough, what would the ACLU be satisfied with?
I think we need to look at the details, but there needs to be some legitimate security basis for doing what Mr. Trump wants to do. And he asked his own intelligence agency, the DHS, for that information, and they said, actually, country citizenship is not a reliable indicator. What more do you need?
Dan, I mean, basically what Andre is saying is that Mr. Trump is fixing something that ain't broke.
Well, look, the ACLU is saying that it should be the arbiter of what constitutes a national security basis for a power that for the last 100 years has been delegated by Congress to the president to protect the American people. Nobody's interested in giving the ACLU carte blanche authority to use our courts to prosecute a political agenda. If Donald Trump is trying to stop Muslim immigration, he is failing miserably, because this order only affects a fraction of 1%, not only of Muslims, but of people worldwide. So every time you repeat this ridiculous comment that it's a Muslim ban, you are actually helping radical extremists in the Middle East to pursue their agenda. And whatever the ACLU's intention here, to try to get courts to use things like the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment to second-guess immigration policy decisions delegated by Congress, by the Constitution to Congress, the American people, strikes at the very heart of sovereignty. Remember, the president is the commander-in-chief. If we have a sovereign, that devolves into one person under our constitutional system, the close approximation is the president. He has to be able to prosecute foreign wars, control the borders, and conduct foreign policy.
Andre, your response?
That's just crazy. I mean, he said things like the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment. That's the bedrock. Those are the bedrock principles of this country, and that's what the ACLU stands for. The ACLU is not in a position to be making these decisions for the president. That we have never said that. But we are in a position to take the president to task when he does do things that violate the Constitution.
Dan Stein, Andre
never set